They thought it would break him. They looked at the wreckage of his life and expected silence. They expected surrender. And to be honest, for a moment, he did too. When life tore everything he had from his hands, his plans, his people, his peace, he stood there staring into the ashes numb. But the silence that followed wasn't weakness. It wasn't the end. It was the stillness before a storm. The kind that rebuilds. He wasn't afraid to start over, not because he had some magical strength or blind optimism, but because he had already tasted loss. He had already felt the sting of being left behind. When you've had everything taken from you, there's a strange kind of freedom in it. You stop fearing what you could lose, because it's already gone. All that's left is what you're willing to fight for again. And he was willing. He didn't want pity. He didn't want applause. He just wanted a chance to rebuild on his terms this time. Not to prove anyone wrong, but to prove to himself that he still could dot. No one saw how many nights he sat awake, eyes wide open, replaying every decision, every mistake, every moment he trusted someone who wasn't built to stay. They don't talk about those nights, the ones where the pain doesn't come from what happened, but from the lies you told yourself to hold on to what was falling apart. He trusted too easily, gave too freely, loved without caution. And when everything fell apart, they called him foolish, weak, too soft for this world. But they didn't see the man who kept breathing when it felt like every breath was borrowed, who showed up to life anyway, who got up and faced the mirror when even his reflection felt like a stranger. Starting over wasn't a moment. It wasn't dramatic or cinematic. It was quiet. It was waking up one morning and deciding to stand up, even though nothing had changed. It was picking up a shattered piece of himself and saying, "Let's see who I can become now." He didn't need revenge. He didn't need validation. What he needed was redemption, not from the world, but from the version of himself who believed he was finished. You see, people often love the idea of a comeback story, but they don't stay for the chapters where the hero cries alone in his room, questioning if he has anything left to give. They don't read the parts where he fails again, stumbles again, loses again, but he kept going. That's what they'll never understand, that he kept going without the cheers, without a shoulder to lean on. He rebuilt himself in silence, with cracked hands and a tired heart. And with every brick, he made sure he built differently. He wasn't looking for approval anymore. He wasn't chasing people who once made him feel invisible. This time, he was building something sacred, a life where he didn't have to shrink to fit, where he didn't have to bleed to feel worthy. He began investing in his soul the way he used to invest in others. The boundaries he once thought were cold, he now understood were necessary. Not everyone deserved access to him. Not everyone could handle the man he was becoming. He stopped asking why it all fell apart. He stopped replaying the conversations that ended in silence. Some people weren't meant to stay, not because they were bad, but because they were temporary. Lessons, painful, necessary teachers. And instead of resenting them, he thanked them. They taught him to walk alone, to speak less and observe more, to trust actions, not intentions, to stop making excuses for people who constantly showed him who they really were. There was power in starting over. It stripped away the noise, the expectations, the illusions. It forced him to meet himself Not the version molded by others, but the raw, unfiltered truth of who he was. And the truth wasn't pretty. It was scarred, bruised, but it was real. And in that truth, he found strength. Not the loud kind, the quiet, unshakable kind. The kind that doesn't flinch when storms come, because he's already been through. Worse dot, he learned that you don't need the world to understand your journey. You just need to understand your worth. He stopped chasing love that made him feel like a burden. Stopped entertaining people who disappeared when things got hard. He became his own home, his own peace, his own rescue. And little by little, things started to shift. Not because life suddenly became easier, but because he became harder to break. He stopped begging for doors to open. He started building his own. And those who once doubted him, they started watching. Silently, surprised. But he didn't look back, not out of spite, but because his focus was forward now, on growth, on healing, on becoming everything they thought he couldn't. He smiled. Again, not because everything was perfect, but because he had survived. And survival, after everything he went through, was a victory no one could take from him. Every scar on his body, every memory that once made him flinch, they became part of his armor. Not walls, but wisdom. He knew better now. He chose better now. And most importantly, he believed in himself now. Because when a man learns to rise, without a hand reaching out, without voices cheering him on, that man becomes unstoppable. He no longer needs permission to be powerful, no longer needs validation to be valuable. He walks into rooms with silence and leaves with respect. Not because he demands it, but because he embodies it. They'll ask him one day, "How did you do it? How did you come back from that?" And he'll smile, not out of arrogance, but with quiet certainty, because he knows they'll never truly understand what it took. The nights, the loneliness, the rebuilding, the battles fought in silence, the parts of him that died so something greater could live. But he won't explain, not because he can't, but because he no longer needs to. The man they see today, he speaks for himself. Starting over didn't make him weaker. It made him wiser. Every loss was a lesson. Every ending, a new beginning. And as he walks forward now, there's no bitterness in his stride. Only purpose, only peace. Because he no longer carries what broke him. He carries what built him. And that is more than enough.